Hello, Hayes. My mom said no when I asked if my husband and I could come home for Thanksgiving. We have a complicated relationship and hadn't spoken except for a few emails in about a year, but her refusal hurt more than I expected. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law kept asking if we were coming to their Thanksgiving. At first, my husband said we were likely going to see my family, but when plans changed, he let her know we'd be coming after all. Here's where I'm struggling. My mother-in-law never acknowledged the change or asked what happened, and that really stings. Last Christmas with his family was similar. No one asked about my family, our traditions, or whether it was hard spending the holiday away from them. I felt like that whole part of my life just doesn't exist to them. Now I'm going into Thanksgiving scared I'll have to hide how much I'm hurting because nobody will ask. I've known her for 8 years, and she's nice but gossipy sometimes. She doesn't ask many questions about my life, my job, or how I'm doing. I often feel like I have to shrink or hide parts of myself around his family, and I really don't want to feel that way during the holidays. Is there a way to tell my mother-in-law that I'm having a hard time without giving her every detail? Yours, the ghost at dinner. Well, this is obviously a letter about the holidays and complicated family dynamics. It's really, the reason I picked this is because I want to talk about that feeling when it seems like nobody around you understands your pain or understands the thing you're thinking about. And even though you're surrounded by other people, and maybe you even have to put on a happy face, you're having this private, personal experience, and you feel like nobody around you knows what's going on. Nobody around you knows how you really feel. There's an ocean between us. That's kind of the phrase that often comes into my head when I feel stuck in this feeling, if I'm going through something and I have to be around other people, or even if it's just me. It comes up even if I'm alone with Brian and I'm having a really painful private moment and I'm not choosing to talk about it. And sometimes even when I do choose to talk about it and I don't feel exactly seen in the way that I see myself. There's this phrase that comes up. It's like I feel like there's an ocean between us. And sometimes that ocean exists because there is an ocean, and other people are never really going to understand exactly your pain or understand exactly the thing you're going through. And the ocean is there because the ocean will always be there. And then other times people are doing things to create that space. But it is one of the more isolating experiences that I have felt. And I know the holidays can trigger that feeling for so many people. And it's not specific to if you have a complicated family dynamic. It's not specific to family estrangement. I think the holidays, because of the way they're tied to, because the holidays are tied to so many specific family memories. And as we get older, we do forget about a lot of memories. You forget about a lot of things, but the holidays stand out. And maybe your holiday memories sort of summarize the rest of the year. The things that come out on the holidays, they're not that different than the way things go every other month or every other family dinner or every other meal, whatever. But because there's all the expectation baked into the holiday, it's you remember what happens on the holidays more. But we bring those memories with us into the holidays. And I think it's crazy to think about how everybody at the table could be having this private inner experience. And yet there's the public thing that's all going on and no one's talking about what's happening inside their head. I don't think that's true for everyone. For example, letter writer, the ghost at dinner, perhaps your mother-in-law isn't asking you questions about your family dynamic because she doesn't ask herself those questions. So let's talk a little bit about this. First of all, it is really normal and it makes complete sense that you would feel immense grief around this holiday and around this holiday in particular, where you wanted to reach back out, you wanted to be together, and she said no. It makes complete sense that would trigger a new wave of disappointment or anger or pain, whatever it is that you're feeling. That makes sense that you're feeling that. You don't need to push that away. It's a completely valid reaction, and I would encourage you not to push it away, because if you push it away, when we push things away, they don't actually go away. They just fester deeper inside of us and become harder to pull out, but we feel the effects of them. We feel the effects of whatever you are burying, even if other people can't tell. And I think some of that is, you're bringing some of that naturally into your new Thanksgiving plans. Now, what do we do though when the people we are spending a challenging holiday with, or the people we have to be around, we're not close to? Maybe that's the most generous way to put it. I was going to say not emotionally intelligent, not sensitive, and they might not be. But like, what do we do when we're not close with them? I think, well, for starters, I want to talk about the support you have in your husband. Do you have support in your husband? I think one really powerful thing that the two of you can do together is talk about how hard this holiday is for you, and maybe with him, discuss ways that he can be there for you and that you can be there for each other on Thanksgiving and on the days around Thanksgiving, and what that looks like in practice while you're at his family's house. Maybe it's you have a code word and he can encourage you to like go take some time for yourself, and he'll say, oh, Hayes is going to go read for a little bit. Why don't you go read that book that you're loving, and then you can go escape and have some alone time? Or maybe if there are certain topics that you don't really want to discuss, maybe your husband can be prepared to help steer the conversation away. If there are certain topics that you do want to discuss that help snap you out of the grief for a little while, and topics that help you become animated, maybe he can help bring those up when you might be struggling to kind of carry the conversation on your own. Maybe it's physical touch that helps you. Maybe you can talk about how you need extra kind of hugs and hand holding and affection. Have a conversation about what's going to help you, and see if he can commit to kind of doing an extra 10% around these days. That's number one. He also might want to have a conversation with his mother-in-law, but I want to talk a little bit about the mother-in-law first. Something that I have struggled with, because I have a really hard time with this topic too. Not with anybody in particular necessarily, but like feeling like people around me will never understand what it is that I'm going through or what it is that I feel, and then being like flabbergasted when they say things to me that I think are really fucking insensitive. And it does come up a lot around the holidays. I'm spending the holidays alone this year, and one of the reasons I'm so excited about it is because I get to almost like feel my pain in peace, but also have real joy, like start to create real joy because I can have the pain and peace. And pain and peace, I don't think means not feeling any pain, but it means being able to feel it in an honest, raw way and not needing to conceal it. And when somebody who ostensibly, when somebody who should know, this woman, your mother-in-law's known you for 8 years, she probably has a sense about your complicated family dynamic. For her not to ask, or for her to ask questions that could come out of the mouth of somebody who doesn't know anything about you, like, it's hard to recover from those moments. Sometimes people, and I talk about this a lot with my therapist, when I'm repeatedly disappointed or upset by a person in my life and how they talk to me about certain things, or how they don't talk to me about certain things, or how they don't talk to each other about certain things, there comes a point where it is on me that I'm continuing to be surprised when they show me exactly who they are. And who they are isn't even bad, but it sometimes becomes on us. Like if we're regularly like distraught because somebody doesn't ask us about whether it's hard to spend time with our family, or whether it's hard being apart from our family, or to ask us questions about hard memories or just deep emotional topics, whatever, you have to ask yourself, like, is this person capable of that? Is that part of who they are? And if the answer is no, for your mother-in-law, has she been that way her entire life? Like, has she been this way for the last 30 years? She might not be changing. And what would it look like for you to accept her for who she is? Now, there's also the chance, though, that your mother-in-law isn't asking you questions about your family because she doesn't know that she's supposed to, or she's nervous about it. Maybe she comes from a family that doesn't talk about hard things. Lots of families don't talk about hard things, which is part of what makes the holidays really hard, especially if you're somebody who is, trying to unpack your generational trauma or do things differently in your family, most families don't talk about their problems. And I don't know what your husband's family is like, but if they are the type of family that does not talk about sensitive topics, it would again make sense that she hasn't asked you. She might be capable of change. She might be capable of going there with you, but she might need, as you've suggested, she might need some guidance. So yes, I do absolutely think it's okay to tell her that you're having a hard time. It's really funny because my inclination often is like, I don't want to tell people that I'm having a hard time once they've, and this is a flaw of mine. I'm not saying that this is something you should do. It's not always a flaw of mine, but I think I've gone a little too extreme. With some people, I've probably gone a little too extreme. Once I have bucketed someone as you're never going to be a person who's comforting to me about this topic, so I am never going to bring the topic to you. That's kind of what it is. It's not even like you won't understand. It's like you won't be comforting. And oops. Hi, Mom. I'll call you back later. I really owe my mom a phone call. When a topic is as like precious and delicate as estrangement with your family, I don't want to talk about that with somebody who I think might make me feel worse, you know? And once I've gathered some evidence, is it evidence enough to say that, this person can never change? Probably not. But once I've gathered enough evidence for my little brain, I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you about this. Now, the hard part though, is if I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you about this, it doesn't mean that the feelings inside me go away when I'm in their presence. It just means that I've written it off as like, we don't go there because you're going to say something. You're going to do something, that's going to make me feel more upset and alone, or I'm not going to be able to like forgive you, or you're going to do something wrong and I'm going to add it to my list of reasons why you are not a person I talk to about personal stuff. And I think I fear both of those situations. So sometimes I just withhold. Again, I'm not saying that is what you should do. It's the coping mechanism that I've developed over the course of my, life. And it's something that I am unpacking and unlearning now, but it's hard because when you behave a certain way for a really long time, it's hard to change those behaviors. It's hard for me to open up to people that I have labeled as nah, in the same way that it might be hard for your mother-in-law to talk about sensitive topics if she's labeled those topics as nah. Do you know what I'm saying? But you could try. The fact that you have the earnestness and openness to want to try with your mother-in-law, I think that's a great sign. Whenever any of us have that feeling of, I want to try is there a way for me to tell them I want to try? I think we should take it. Those opportunities don't come up that often. Most of the time, I'm not really wanting to open up, but I'm having to force myself to because I'm trying to practice. I think depending on your relationship with her, you could, maybe while you're in the kitchen, let's say, you could ask if she needs some help with the green beans or whatever. And you can just tell her, you can say, I know you and I haven't talked about this much, but the holidays are hard for me because of my complicated relationship with my family. I don't want to really get into the details, but I wanted to share that with you because it's going to be on my mind this week. And it feels lonely to not tell you what's going on for me personally. You could say something like that and see how she reacts. And based on, pay attention to how you feel when she reacts. It might be uncomfortable no matter what because it's going to be new. But you can then decide if you want to share more or if you want to pull back. Because even if that's all you say, I want you to know that this is hard for me. I don't want to talk about it more, but I just want to have that awareness between us. Like that's enough. And that's a win, I think. It's enough and it's a win. So maybe I would try that. Some people just aren't, I think it's really hard being around someone else's, let's talk about that actually. Being around somebody else's family around the holidays and having to spend time with them. is a very strange experience, especially when you're used to your family, even if your family isn't perfect. And some people's families just like don't talk about the stuff that your family is going to talk about or that your friends are going to talk about. And it can feel really isolating when you spend this really saturated time with them. Any of us can deal with a dinner or a meal or a couple of hours with someone's family. But when you're spending, maybe 2-3 days, I think that these absences of they never ask me about my feelings, that comes up more. They never ask about my feelings. And I know I already said this, but I do think it's worth asking yourself. They never ask about feelings, but do I talk about my feelings? Do I show that it's okay to ask me about my feelings? I don't a lot of the time, and that's because I don't want to talk about my feelings. It's really a fucking paradox. Like, I feel isolated because we don't talk about feelings, and yet I don't want to talk about them at all. The thought makes me sick to my stomach, and I'd simply rather not. It's pretty funny. I do think there is another painful reality to this. One truth, though, that I want to make room for is that to an extent, nobody is going to understand. No one is going to take the pain away. And there is a piece of this that you will be feeling alone kind of for the rest of your life. Or forever, how long I shouldn't say the rest of your life. I don't know the details of your situation. Sometimes the things we deal with in our family is grief that we will hold forever. And we can share our pain with others and we can receive support. But at the end of the day, you at the table are going to have your own private inner experience of that grief. And the holidays can make it feel really intolerable. I know. And I know that feeling of being like, I have to, all right, how can I be really real here? How can I be really real here? Your line about that sometimes you feel like you have to shrink yourself. I'm very familiar with the feeling, tell me if this relates to you at all, of like when I am really in the throes of my sadness, disappointment, grief about family stuff. Is it even about family stuff? It's actually whenever my feelings are becoming so large and intense and big, I start to feel like I'm going to ruin the day. Like I'm going to ruin this meal. I'm going to ruin the night. And everyone around me at this beautiful Thanksgiving is so happy. And yet here I am, quiet and sullen because of the pain that's eating me alive. The guilt and the shame that I feel afterwards is really, really intense. And that is something I've struggled with forever. And it's something I'm really working on, how to feel less shame for the scope of the pain I feel about certain topics. And on the holidays are like supposed to be perfect. And when you go into somebody else's family and they sort of function as if other people's pain isn't real or that they don't have pain themselves, even though I'm sure they do, you as the person who's coming into the dynamic with complications, with that hard private experience, it can make you feel really bad about yourself and make you want to disappear and make you want to hide that because you don't want to be that wrecking ball. You don't want people to see you as like, who's this sad girl at the table? We wish she wasn't here. And it's a hard personal narrative to tell yourself. But I want you to know that just because you're sad on Thanksgiving doesn't mean that you are going to ruin anybody's time. And I'm making space for you at my virtual table for your sadness. And my hope for you, and this is really my hope for me too, is that we can know that we are like lovable, and people appreciate being around us, even with the pain that you carry and the pain that you bring to the table. That's what I really want you to know. And I feel some relief spending the holidays alone with Brian this year, knowing that like I can experience my pain without being judged for it. Even if no one else is judging me, it's hard while you're still somebody who's working through like not judging yourself. It's a little easier to be alone because while you are judging yourself, it's going to be easy to think everybody else is judging you. But since you do have to be with them, since you do have to be around other people, I just want to, but since you do have to be around other people, I guess my words to you is just like, 10x the self-compassion, 10x the compassion that you ask your husband to show you. And I know it's like you shouldn't have to ask your husband to show you compassion, but I do think that in these times, it can be really helpful and useful to go into them with like really clear expectations and wants, and really talk about explicitly what's going to help you, so that when you do feel sad and you do feel alone, you've already established what's going to help. You don't need to go into problem solving mode when you're feeling your feelings. You can only focus on feeling them, Okay. Is there anything else on this part? We're going to move in the next part of the episode. We're going to continue to talk about some holiday questions that you guys sent me on Instagram. To anybody else who's feeling any of this, and just anybody else who's feeling alone at all for any reason at the holidays, I just want you to know that I see you and I think it's normal. And while you're looking at all of the stuff on Instagram and everybody's pictures and videos of their like perfect happy families, just know that there are other people, even people in those videos and in those pictures, who are dealing with some of the same feelings you are, even if not about the same topic. Because I think the feeling here of feeling alone when you're surrounded by other people on a day that's supposed to be happy, that is real. And there are millions of people who are feeling that too. I'll be feeling it. So even if you need one real person to think of, just know that I will be feeling it with you. And right next to the sadness and the pain can also be joy. And I hope you do carve out some of those moments of joy. I hope you carve out some of those moments of joy for yourself too. Okay, moving on. As I mentioned in this episode, Brian and I are alone for Thanksgiving this year. We're actually going to be alone for all of the holidays. Normally we spend Christmas with my family. Our Christmas plans have changed dramatically since my grandma's illness. Growing up, we went to New Jersey every year and celebrated with her. And it was the Christmas at my grandma's is where my childhood memories are the happiest. And losing that has been very painful. But we decided, I'm grateful to my mom for so many reasons, but one of the reasons I'm grateful for her is that she never puts pressure on us. She really supports us making decisions that are best for us. And I really love that about her. In the last couple of years, we've done Christmas in Florida, and it's been really hard. We're all grappling with the loss of my grandma in different ways. And I think the last few years we've like tried to make Christmas in Florida with grandma in some capacity work. And it's just hard. And this year we spoke about it. We spoke about it in person. My mom was here earlier this month, and we had spoken about it on the phone a couple of times. And I asked her, how do you feel about me not coming to Florida for Christmas this year? I want to do, and I stand by this, I want to support my mom. My mom is an only child and bears the brunt of my grandma's Alzheimer's. And we all are experiencing it differently, and our grief looks different because we are different people, and, mother-daughter is different than granddaughter-grandmother. And if my mom had said, I need you there, I want you there, I would have done it. But turned out that us not coming, actually, it doesn't take away the pain of the fact that that my grandma is gone. And when I say she's gone, sometimes like when I've posted about my grandma with people who don't actively listen, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. My grandma died too." My grandma is still alive, but she is gone, she is gone. And I think people who have experienced Alzheimer's will know what I mean. She is not there. And not celebrating, like pretending at Christmas makes it hard. And it doesn't, celebrating Christmas without her, like, doesn't make the pain easier. In fact, it kind of makes it harder because it feels like we're pretending. And, my mom is such a wonderful person. I think it's giving all of us an opportunity to continue to heal. And I'm going to fly out. I'm going to fly out separately and I'll visit my grandma and we'll sort of do Christmas. We won't do Christmas another time, but I will go out and visit and, kiss my grandmother and tell her I love her and visit with her for a little bit at a different time. It doesn't need to be on the actual holiday. And I know I'm going to feel really, really sad when, excuse me. I know that I'm going to feel really, really sad when the holiday comes around, and I will feel sad on Thanksgiving as well for other reasons, and because the holidays are hard for me and they've always been hard. But I feel some relief that this year we're staying put, both for health reasons. I was just so sick. I've had COVID 3 times, and it has permanently affected my immune system. And traveling around the holidays is just, I get sick, and I really care about not getting sick. So I'm grateful to not have to travel around the holidays right now. I'm grateful to have this one last holiday alone with Brian here and start a new tradition ourselves. It's all going to be okay, but the holidays are hard. And I'm sharing this with you so that you know that I am feeling it too. I'm feeling it too. If you're feeling any version of any of this, your feelings on any side of the scale, sometimes I think feelings can be really intense, even if your circumstances or your situation doesn't seem like it warrants it. You're allowed to feel sad, even if your family is perfectly intact. Maybe you're struggling with something with friendships, and maybe you're going home for the holidays and all of your home friends are still really close and you're the only one who's fallen out from the group, or you've moved, and whatever the holidays is bringing up for you, it's okay if you feel sad. You don't need to prove your sadness to anyone. So that is one thing I wanted to say. I do think we're going to go get a Christmas tree this weekend, right after we got a Christmas tree last year, Brian and I, but we did it like in the middle of December, and now we're going to do it like the day after Thanksgiving and set it up. Quick explainer. I am Jewish. I was raised Jewish. My mom converted to Judaism when she married my dad, and my parents were married for 18 years. So they were married for a good, a solid chunk of time. And my mom has now been Jewish way longer than she wasn't Jewish. They got married in her early 20s, and she's 60 now. So I was fully raised Jewish, but my mom's family and my grandma are Christian. And my grandmother's brothers, this is some quick, Hayes lineage. Hayes is my dad's last name, but my grandma was DiMatteo. So my mom's parents were divorced. So my grandma was DiMatteo, Catherine Geraldine DiMatteo, and my grandpa, my mom's dad, was Robert Ticcio. So some Italian-ass last names. My grandma had 2 siblings, my uncle Gerard, who was a pastor, and then my aunt Marianne, who sadly died from glioblastoma about a few years ago. There's the 3 of them, and they had a major, major age gap. My grandmother's mother, hope you're sticking with me here. My grandmother's mother had many miscarriages. So my grandmother's siblings actually are closer to my mom's age. So my mom grew up with her aunt and uncle, kind of like a brother and sister, not like an aunt and uncle. So the dynamic is really interesting there. But my grandma is Christian. 2 of my uncles on that side are pastors. And for Christmas every year, we would go celebrate at my grandma's, and we'd spend time with my cousins. And again, they're like the happiest. They're some of the like purest childhood memories I have. And That's just a little context about the Jewish Christian thing. We actually, growing up, we had belonged to a conservative temple. If you're not familiar, in Judaism, there's like different sects of, you can consider them like different levels of how traditional maybe you are in your Judaism. That honestly might not be the correct way to explain it. I am not an expert, but we were conservative, which was a sort of a higher level of observance. And before my bat mitzvah, they were not going to allow my grandmother on the bima. The bima is where the Torah is held and where the bat mitzvah girl or the bar mitzvah boy stands in front of everybody and does the service. That's where the bima is, where the service is. And we wanted to have my grandma up there to honor her because, as you guys know, she was, helping raise us and she was like a mother to me. And they weren't going to allow her on the bima because she wasn't Jewish. So we actually switched to a Reform synagogue. Reform, I guess, is like the level, probably saying the level down is disrespectful and not actually the correct way to say it. But the more modern, perhaps, we switched to a modern temple so that Graham could be on the bima. And I didn't really understand the significance of that when I was 11, 12. But looking back, I see how that was probably like a really major decision for my parents to make. My parents divorced shortly thereafter, but not because of that, but LOL. Okay, moving on. I asked you guys to send me some questions on Instagram, any other holiday questions. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a holiday themed episode, and I wanted to make sure that I discuss some of these topics. Okay, let's pull them up. So somebody asked me how to handle invasive questions from extended family. I'm bracing myself for lots of, why aren't you engaged yet conversations. And when I was single, it was, well, are you on the apps? Have you tried joining running clubs? Are you putting yourself out there? And on and on and on. I know my sister gets asked about when they're having kids too, which you talked about recently, but I think we all deal with some version of this. Yes, we do. I wonder if going into the weekend, if you're prepared to receive invasive questions, I think it's helpful to have a conversation with yourself where you talk about what you're willing to share and what you're not willing to share. I think it is worth it for everybody, yourself included, to like be willing to talk about some things a little bit, even if you have a blanket answer. Like to be willing to engage in the question a little instead of just shutting all of them down. I think sometimes when you just shut every question down with, I don't want to talk about that. That's a rude question. I don't want to talk about that. It like makes it harder for you, not only because everybody is going to be talking about how you refuse to talk about something, but also it just like kind of creates this like wall energy. And I think what you want to really have the upper hand, you want to have more of an open energy that you're in control of. And I don't think putting a wall up is always the way to have control. So when are you getting engaged? By the way, before Brian and I got engaged, and especially when I was really struggling with the fact that we weren't, I actually was never struggling with the fact that we weren't engaged. Sorry. The moving in together, that one was really hard for me because I had wanted to move in with Brian before he was ready to move in with me. Hi.
Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, Brian. Okay, you're going for the walk now?
Yeah.
Okay, I love you. Bye. I thought I heard somebody. Thought I heard somebody creeping outside my door. Funny timing. I think it's great to have kind of a cheeky response. So if someone says, when are you guys getting engaged? You could say, oh, we have forever to be married, hopefully. Hopefully we'll be married for a very long time. So we're enjoying this stage right now. We're not in a rush, but we're very happy. Saying something like that, I think, is great if you and your partner are talking about marriage or engagement, and that wouldn't be completely out of left field. If it is really out of left field and somebody asks you a question that's like not only disrespectful to you, but like puts the relationship dynamic in a weird way, you can make a joke and be like, well, that's a fun question to ask me and my new boyfriend, and then apologize to the boyfriend later. Like maybe it can be a running joke. Actually, going into Thanksgiving, it could be helpful for you and your partner, or you and whoever you're bringing to Thanksgiving, to talk about some of the weird questions that might come up. That way it's not like a shock to anybody. I said you don't want to have a wall up to others, but I actually think it's useful to have like a little bit of a wall inside of you that protects you from internalizing these questions. And the best way to build that wall, I think, is by having responses ready that aren't combative. If you have a soft response that sort of answers the question but redirects it, puts you in control, then I think that it stops you from feeling so much frustration or anger or hurt when the questions come up, because that's not fun for you. Like, it's not going to be fun for you to be getting mad or sad repeatedly when people ask you questions. You're going to get some annoying questions on the holidays, and like, you're going to get them. You can't avoid them. I really don't think you can avoid them. If you know your family and you know these people and you know they're going to ask you stuff, just be prepared for it and make the conscious decision to not care. That's what some of this is about. Now, of course, if you're navigating something really secretly painful and they don't know about it, yes, the questions are going to sting more. But I think you can prepare for that. I think as much as you can approach the weekend with like, look, all bets are off. People are going to ask me questions that I feel are invasive, and it's going to be a fun exercise for me to let them roll right off my shoulder. You can even make a game out of it with your friends, or like make a game out of it with your partner of how many obnoxious questions are we going to receive. If you can sort of treat the questions like a joke, even if you giggle a little when the question comes up, it can kind of trick your brain into thinking it's not as big of a deal or not as rude as it is. And I don't think that this is avoidant, or I don't think that this is people pleasing. I think that this is protective of you. However, you also can say that you don't feel like talking about something. Like, I remember at my stepdad's 70th birthday, we were all at the house, and his brother was there, and his brother loves to talk to me about work and asks me how many followers I have and questions that I don't like answering, that make me uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about this. And in the morning, I had like just woken up. Okay. I had just woken up. I was in the kitchen, and he's like, "So how many followers you got now?" And I kind of laughed, and I was like, you know what? I think I said, "Can we discuss this after I've had some coffee?" And he kind of laughed, and he's like, "Absolutely, we don't have to discuss it." And I really appreciated that. I could have responded in a really snarky way, but I kind of smiled and was like, this is a post-coffee conversation. And I think if you can, maybe you can borrow that line at some point this weekend. Post-coffee, you can be like, "I'm going to need a glass of wine to talk about that." That could be a joke for the engagement conversation. "I need a glass of wine to talk about that." And then say, "No, but really, we're great and we're in no rush, but things are going really well." Something like that. Bringing a little humor in, I think, can be helpful. All right, moving on. Someone asked about how to deal with a mother-in-law who, every time that she and her husband go visit his parents, they stay in a hotel. They don't stay at her in-laws' house. And that's because the mother is a hoarder and she's filled all of the guest rooms with stuff. Even just being there is overwhelming for my husband, this person wrote to me. But the mother-in-law is not being direct about asking them why they won't stay there. Her feelings are hurt, but she goes through the father-in-law. So she'll ask her husband, "Why aren't the kids staying with us?" And it becomes this, she said, he said. I think that this is a good example of how it's really important to be honest with people about your boundaries. So if your husband has a boundary that he's not going to stay in the house because of mom's hoarding, or even because we're not going to stay there because it's not physically comfortable for us, the best thing for your husbands to do is be honest about that. I think a lot of people, a lot of men have a hard time being honest with their mothers about boundaries. And I think that I talk about this with a friend sometimes, like so many husbands in my kind of social circle, like, won't tell their mothers the truth, and they'll like try to soften it all the time. And like, the truth isn't even that hurtful. It is okay if you want to stay in a hotel. It would be fine if you wanted to stay in a hotel, even if the house was clean, but you valued your personal space. But trying to make up some elaborate reason, I think relationships, look, her feelings might be hurt, but at least the honest truth is out there, and you don't have to like keep up with a lie, or you don't have to maintain this secret telephone game that's going on. That's exhausting. And that type of behavior is what I think erodes that relationships. And when the two of you as a couple feel like you can't be honest with his parents, I don't know. I think that over time, that's what contributes to like I dread being with my mother-in-law type of feeling. So I think your husband has to be honest. I think your husband could be honest with his mom, and that might be really uncomfortable for him if he hasn't done that before, but that's probably the best thing to do. Ugh, it's really tricky. Someone asked, how do I deal with family members that have very specific ideas for holiday plans? I feel like compromise is the name of the game here. If you know that you have family that you sort of find difficult in their peculiarity or in their diligence to like doing things a very specific way, I wonder if you can identify some of those things and be like, all right, I'm willing to do that exactly their way, but then also identify some things where you are going to pull back. So just because they want you to do the turkey trot, you could say, no turkey trot for me this year, but I'm excited for you to do it. But maybe you will stay out of the kitchen if they really like to be alone in the kitchen. I don't know. I think you're not going to change anybody on this holiday. If your sister has been a specific way forever, she's not going to behave any differently because it's Thanksgiving. I think a lot of the holidays is about managing our expectations, and you'll do yourself a great service if you go into it knowing, all right, I know how this is going to go. Here's what I'm going to participate in, and here's where I'm going to pull back. But we're not doing any of the, here's where I'm going to try to change things, or here's where I'm going to try to influence. It's here's what I'm going to participate in, and here's what I'm not going to participate in. Someone wrote, I feel like the holidays bring up a lot of grief for people we've lost, so that could be helpful to chat about. We've talked a lot about that in this episode at large, but another thing I'll add is, I think it's important to remember that everybody handles grief differently. And even I think something that's hard about the holidays is like you could be sitting around the table with everybody, and everybody at the table has been impacted by the same thing, whether it's a death or a divorce or a illness or a financial ruin or whatever. Everybody could be impacted by the same thing, but it doesn't feel the same to everybody, and the repercussions of the thing could be different for everybody, and that can feel really lonely. It can feel really lonely if you're feeling the pain really intensely and it doesn't seem like anybody else is. Or maybe someone's really angry and their anger is off-putting to you, but the anger is the manifestation of their grief, and you're sad and you just want to watch movies all day. I think it can be helpful to remember that even though maybe you've all experienced the same loss, it's not going to show up the same way. And knowing that, look, it doesn't necessarily take away the shock of it, but just something to kind of prepare yourself for. Someone asked, can we talk about trying to please everybody while trying to enjoy it for yourself? Oh, it's really hard to enjoy something for yourself when you're trying to please everybody. I think that to a degree, wanting to please other people or wanting to help other people or be like a positive presence to other people, to a degree, that's good. It's when it's getting in the way of you enjoying yourself that we have a problem. So I wonder, it might be helpful to do like a little brainstorm for yourself beforehand of what are the things that you do for others that feel like they're at an expense to you. Maybe it's you mediate drama between your sister and your brother. And that's you trying to please everybody and smooth things over, but it's extremely draining to you. In that situation, then, maybe you say, if my siblings get in a fight, instead of trying to fix it, I'm going to go in a different room and pour myself a glass of wine and snuggle my puppy and wait till it's past. And I can maybe talk to them in private if I want to, if that feels okay, but I'm not going to try to fix it. Even if I feel sad, even if it's ruining the dinner, I'm not going to get involved. And I'm going to try that this year. But I think that maybe coming up with, if there are certain things you do, identifying them beforehand and then making some goals for yourself could be helpful. Someone asked, what do you think about gift giving when you have different budgets? Is setting a budget tacky? I don't think setting a budget is tacky at all. I think I completely understand feeling bad about yourself if you are not able or not interested in spending the amount of money on gifts for someone that they might be spending on you. It totally depends on the dynamic. Sometimes we put those expectations on ourselves. Somebody might want to give you the Apple Watch. I'm just talking about Apple Watch because Brian and I were talking about an Apple Watch the other night. He wants an Apple Watch. Somebody might have the means to gift you an Apple Watch. I don't think that they are necessarily expecting you to spend $300 on a gift for them. try to think about gifts for other people really through the lens of what you are able to do and not what they're going to give you. It's really hard to do. I definitely fall into the trap of like, oh, I know so and so is going to be able more with friends than with family. I'm fortunate where in my family dynamic, I don't feel pressure about spending and any of that. Last year for the holidays, I made a homemade gift for all of my siblings. I painted them all a picture of my mom's dog. I don't think I personally wouldn't set a budget in the sense of making people agree on how much they're going to spend on me. Like, I'm happy for people to buy me expensive gifts, even if I am not buying them an expensive gift, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't make me feel insecure for my sister to spend more on me than I'm going to spend on her. If that would make you feel better, do it. But I also would encourage you to accept people's generosity if it is truly generous. Now, if you have a dynamic with your family where it's like, it's going to be an issue if you spend less. Like, I have received letters from some people who are like, I always spend more and my sister doesn't spend as much as me. And I don't answer those letters because I can't wrap my head around that. It's hard for me to muster up my sensitivity and my empathy in those conversations. So you should do whatever is going to make you comfortable. I don't think that setting a budget is tacky. I would never say setting a budget is tacky. I would ask you to think about whether it's necessary. Who are you trying to protect? Are you trying to protect your shame, or are you trying to protect some dynamic? Someone asked, how do I deal with family members who are saying things that are not okay? I'm going to tell you what one of my friends told me recently. Let me pull up these texts because she gave me some of the best advice that I've ever heard on this topic. I'm looking at our texts now. So I had texted my friend to ask her for some advice on how I could approach a conversation that I thought might come up. I thought that I might have a challenging political conversation, and I didn't really want to discuss it because I didn't want to have an eruption at dinner. But I asked her what first I just wanted to tell her that I was feeling it, and I asked her how she would handle it. And one of the questions she asked me that I thought was really great: when you think about that hypothetical situation, what makes you feel most scared? What are you most worried will happen? Or what are you most worried that you will do? So that was a really helpful exercise. And ultimately, it's like one of the fears is that I would lose people that I am close to by talking about something hard. And I think that is one of the reasons that a lot of people struggle to have hard conversations, is because you don't want the conversation to result in further alienation and loss. And she talked about why it's helpful to both have a black box around some topics. It's okay if a boundary of yours with someone is that you won't discuss something. She gave me a tool, like kind of an escalation tool for how when you have a topic in a black box because you don't want to discuss it, they're going to say things that are just completely out of whack and it's not the place to get into this topic. You sort of put a black box around it, and you can have an exit plan that escalates on how to make sure you're not putting yourself in a situation you don't want to be in. So step one, if somebody says something that's not okay to you or that you don't want to discuss, could be, I think it's best we talk about something else. And then from there, if they don't stop, I would prefer not to discuss that right now. And then finally, I'm not speaking to you about this. Those escalations, she wrote, most people cannot cope with that level of directness, even antagonistic people. Another great sentence she gave me: we have different views and mine are not up for debate. So let's enjoy the special time we have together and use it well. I think there are times to teach and try to change and kind of have educational conversations and even have healthy debate. And I think it is okay if during the 24 hours you're with your family for Thanksgiving, you don't want to do it. You're not going to do it. Especially if the time is going to be spent with them trying to get you to change your mind, or they're going to berate you for how you feel. I think that those levels, those phrases to have in your back pocket are helpful. And because you are still making the decision right now to be with your family. And at a certain point, you can also decide, look, our beliefs, our values are so opposite that I no longer want to spend time with you on this holiday. You might not be there yet, and maybe you'll get there in the future, who knows? But for now, while you are still choosing to spend this time with them, I think that being direct about, my values are not up for debate, so we're not going to talk about them right now. I think that is a great way to kind of shut down those types of conversations. That is all for today. I'm going to get ready to go to therapy now. I hope Everybody has a great holiday. If you are celebrating whatever you do, please wish me luck with my cooking. I am cooking for two. We're doing turkey. I think we're going to do a turkey breast. I mean, we are doing turkey breast. I ordered it already. It's still like for 4 to 8 people, but that was the smallest possible turkey situation that I could find. Turkey breast. I'm going to make mac and cheese for the first time ever. Never made mac and cheese, but we both want a homemade mac and cheese. Do some salad, some green beans. I'm going to go to the farmer's market on Wednesday morning and get lots of goodies. So wish me luck. I love you all. I'm grateful for you all. Oh, speaking of gratitude, I'm grateful for you all. And I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.